How complex does a new password have to be?
10 characters long,
Oh,
special characters, capitals, all that stuff.
Okay, can we start now?
Yep.
Okay, so welcome to all of you to the SDEV 140. So this is my first time teaching in this campus. So already something new to me. So give me sorry if I have anything coming up during the lecture here. But anyway, we have the third class here is will support you if you have any technical problem. So the first thing I want you to review about the syllabus. When you go to the course and you read information in the syllabus, in that you have some very important information in the syllabus here. So in that one, you have some information about you have the 100% refund deadline. That is when you want to full refund here, and you have non-attendant drop date. This is the date for the non-attendant drop, and the last day to withdraw is that when you have the W in your grade. And you have the contact information. Is my name. You can pronounce Hieu Tran. I originally come from Vietnam. That is my name here. And my email, the phone number here is right now. It is for school phone number. I'm the new faculty here, so they have not given you an extension number yet. But when I have the extension number, I got it updated here. And my office hour is office hours. Here's information for my office hours, so we can stop by anytime, or you can join my Zoom meeting. It has a Zoom meeting if you want to remotely log in, join my office hour. And I have the school office phone number and my supervisor here. And for anything you want to escalate, you can come to him and his number. And you also have the office hour here. And here's some information if you need support. If you go to the IP technical support, or you have the lab technician here. All right. For this class, it requires text and material. And this one you don't have to use the physical book. And if you want to use the digital book, you know that you go to the module here. When you click on the module, when you scroll it down, here, you click on start here to access and get my time. That is a digital book. And so also you can have the assignment online assignment if you do so on the assignment. When you click on this one, it links to the send get my tab here. Okay, and you can close it. So we see that it break it down into the unit here. For the first week, you go with the unit 1 and so on here. And for each of the units, when you click on, you have the read section, you have the code section here, and some of the assignment here, it can be a grade, not all of them, right? So you can see for this one, oh, not this one here. Okay, this one, no question. Why it's not great here? Here you see some of them great, but it's not all of them, right? So basically, let me go back to the syllabus here. Let me continue this syllabus here. So that is the information about this class, right? You do not require for the digital for the physical book, but you can access to the digital book here. And also you have the option. You have option with a low cost print option here. Right? So we read the information for this one. You for the years 2022 and 23 academic year, you have the choice for no cost here. If you want to print, you access the bar and novel, and you require for the printing option here. And here's the course outline of the course. You have some information, some of the brief information we will cover in this class here. I don't want to go into detail for this one before we will go on the classes. And you have the course policy and procedure. And so this is a learn anywhere class. So basically you are required to either join the on-campus class here, or you can join via the Zoom meeting, but make sure you have to join during the class. It's not a virtual class, and no recording is given to you, right? So we are required during the class, you have to join on campus or via the Zoom meeting here. And all the grade here, all the grade will be on the IB online grade book. So when you check, and if you want to keep track of the grade, you click on this one. Right? That everything grade. If you want to keep track of grade, you have to check on this one. Basically, on the My tab, you have the grade here in My tab, and it will be synced to the canvas here. So ultimately, if you want to check your progress, you have to check grade here in the canvas. And the due date and deadline. So when you click on the calendar here, you will see what is the deadline of this week assignment here, right? So let me. I have many class here. What is it? August. Why? This one here, right? So we see I have. Let me unclick up this one, not this one, not this one. Yes, so you see when you click on the calendar, you can see what is the due date for this week assignment. Right? Let me go back. Attendance and participation that you are required, right? And make a policy here. So remember, for any late assignment, it will be automatically graded 0. Right? So if for any reason, if you are not able to submit before the deadline, you need to send me the email or you need to inbox me, and you need to receive the prior approval from me here. Right? So for any reason, if you submit after the due date or without notification, we will get a 0 here. Right. And yes, some of the information again, you see non-attendant drop, that is the time here, September 40th. And the last day to withdraw, it is November 13th. It is 16 weeks, so it is in November 13th here. Again, you are required to join this class either on the campus or on the Zoom meeting here. And for the course communication, you have many options here. You can send an email to me, you can inbox me, you can join my office hour or join a Zoom meeting here, right? And here's some information in chapter in commitment here by the policy. By the policy that I have to reply to you within the 36 hours, within 6 hours, including the weekend and holiday here. And if you need my help, here's some option. You can email me. Actually, I prefer the email more than inbox, because when I work with the email, I can attach it anything very easily. In the inbox, I have more action to do with that one. So you can email me, you can inbox me, you can join my office hour. And in case you are not able to join my office hour, you are not able to join my office hour on the Zoom meeting, send me the email with multiple available window tab. I know that some of you are the full-time, you have the full-time job or you have the part-time job, you are not able to join my office hour, just send me the email with the multiple available tab, so we can arrange which one works best for you and me. All right, and assignments and grading for this class. You have some of the type of the assignment here. The first one is discussion. You have the 8 discussion, and each of them with the 20 points for this one. And in total, we have the 17% for the discussion. And for quizzes, you have the 7 of them, and each of them is a 20, and you have the 15% of the total course grades. Logic and setup item here. You have the only one, and you have the 20 points in total, and you have the 2%. So basically, this is when you set up the Python, you install Python, or when you install the virtual what is it? serial code here, right? And you have a programming practice. This is a 130 point in total. You have the 15% and so on. You have programming assignment. For this one, for this class, you have the final project here. You have a final project. It has the 25% of the total cost right here. And so how is the point distribution? You can see in the table here. Right? You can see the table and you have the discussion and you have 8 of them and you have the total here. And of course, this one, you know, right? Whenever you have a grade, then equal to 90, you have a letter grade A and so on. And you have the sum of the other policy here. If you need to more detail this, you can read on the syllabus here. Yeah, some of the other policies here. Okay, so just remember that for each week you have the specific deadline for the assignment. So always keep check on the calendar here to know what is the due date, what is the deadline for assignment here. Any questions so far? Let me know. Any question? Okay. So for the guy who joined online, can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, so if you do not have any question, let me go with a slide here. The chapter 1 in introduction. So basically, if you look into the canvas shell here, or this one. So basically, for the shell here, it is designed for the 8-week class. But this one is the 8-16, right? So basically, when you scroll down, it is designed for the 8-week class. That's why we only have the 8 module week. And for this class, so it is 16 weeks. That's why for each module, I have to break down into the 2 weeks here. Right? So you see that for that reason, some of the assignment you have the due date for the first Sunday, and some of the assignment you have the due date for the second Sunday. Even that they are on the same module. Okay. Okay, so no more question. Let you go with the slide for the chapter 1 here. Introduction here.
There's a switch on the side. It may not be.
Okay. It's on. Okay. You have the objective for this module. You have described the basic feature of algorithm, explain how the hardware and software collaborate in the computer architecture, a brief history of computing, and compose and run a simple Python program. Okay, so sorry for one thing I forgot to mention here. Let me go back to this one. Let me go to the announcement here. Okay, so that is information you guys join via Zoom, right? That is a link here. Now we begin with the syllabus. You have the sum of the information about the cost policies and procedure. Right? And for every week that if you want to navigate what you are supposed to do for every week, you have to go to module. Right? You have to go to module, and in the module you have the sum activity. You have the reading assignment. You have the sum of the homework assignment here. So if you want to access to the digital book here, that remember you go to the module and you scroll down. You have to start here to access Cengage My Time. That is, you do everything with the reading and the sum of the online assignment here. Right? Remember that some of the assignment will be manually graded in the Canvas. Some will be automatically graded in the My Time, but ultimately it will sync to the Canvas here. Right? So remember one thing: if you want to keep track your progress, if you want to keep track your grade, you have to go to the Canvas and you have to check grades in the Canvas here. So for each of the module, you have to start with the module. The first thing, you have some of the learning activity here. in the learning activity, and in that you have the sum of reading assignment, chapter 1 reading and chapter 2 reading. So now when you've done everything with the reading, you move to the assignment. In that, when you navigate to assignment, you have some of the assignment here. I remember for each of the assignment you have specific delay. And one more thing I have to highlight for this class here. One more thing I have to highlight for this class. When you go to the discussion, here. So basically we have the 8 discussion for this week here. So when you go to the discussion, basically for every discussion you will have 2 debates. Remember that for every discussion you have the 2 debates. And the first debate will be the first Sunday, and the second debate will be the second Sunday here, right? So let me go to the other one here. Yes, no, not this one. Not this discussion here. This one here. So I specify here. You have the initial port. So if you want to see the response from the other student, the first thing you have to do is the initial port first. So for every discussion, you have the 2 debates, and the initial port is on the first Sunday of the module. And the 2 reply, you are supposed that you have at least reply to other student here. So the 2 replies are due on the Sunday of the second week here. Okay, so if you want to see the due date and what are assignment assigned to you during the week, you have the 2 ways to do that, right? The first one you can check in the calendar here, or the second one you go to the module and you scroll down, you'll see 8 of the module here. And basically for now, I will set the due date for this one, so you can see the due date for each of the specific assignment here. Okay, and remember one thing is the last thing here for any challenge. For any challenge in this class, really do not hesitate to contact me. The sooner you contact me, the better for both of us here. So you can contact me as soon as possible, and you can join my office hour. You know that you can join my office hour, or you can join remote on the Zoom meeting here, and you can send me the available time, so we can choose the time to work best for you and me here. Right. Or you can send the email or inbox message to me here. Okay, so I think that's all for this class policy here. And you have any question? No. Okay. Now let's go back to this one here. And the first, sorry, that's okay. So this class is mostly you do with the Python, and in order to do the Python, you have something to do in the background here. The first thing you have to install the Python in the computer. So I believe that more of the computer here already installed, right?
Python is installed on all of these.
Okay, all is good. But if you work at home, you make sure that you have to download and install Python and have it installed in your computer here. So basically, to install the Python, you can go to the Python here. You can go to the Python download, and you see this one here. And you see you have the sum of the option for the Python, right? You can work with some of the version for the Windows. You have the Linux, so right? You know, the Linux also. So you make sure you have to download and install the Python. That's the first step. And the second step that when you work with the Python, you can either work with the IDE in the Python, or you can work with some of the other IDE here. I believe that we have some of the this one. Let me go to this one. Yes, this one. You have the sum of the option here, right? So basically, you see, you can work with IO here integrated in the Python while you install it already here in the Python, or you can work with some other IDE here, the PyCharm, or you can work with Visual Studio Code here. For this class, I'm working with the Visual Studio Code because I'm familiar with the Visual Studio Code. But it's up to you. You can work with IDE here from the Python, or you can work with PyCharm, or you can work with any IDE if you want. Right? But specifically for this class, I work with the Visual Studio Code here. Okay, so now go back again with the slide here. No, it's not touch.
That should be a touch screen, but I will look into that for you.
Okay.
Well, other thing to deal with.
Yeah.
First week already broken.
Okay, so now you have the two fundamental ideas of computer science. It is algorithm and information processing. So basically, you have the two most basic area in the computer science. The first one is the algorithm, and the second one is the information processing. So for algorithm, what is it? It is a sequence of the step or rule you follow to solve a specific problem. So remember, it's a sequence of the rule, and you follow it, and you will giving out a specific problem here. So think about if you have a problem here, right? If you want to figure out how to subtract two numbers here, right? So think about this one here. Right, so think about you have the two number, you have 1000 here. 1000 number, and you have number 99. And if you want to find out what is the difference between two numbers here, right? So also this one you can think about, this is the algorithm to figure out what's the difference between the two numbers here. You have to follow some of the step here, some of the rule here, right? So the first thing you see, the first thing for this one, you can think here. Right.
It may not work since you annotated. I've never seen it not work like that. So I'm wondering if it has that overlay.
This one? You mean
Yeah.
this? No, I think that means I have to clear it. I close. I would close it.
Maybe touch back on PowerPoint. Maybe since you clicked on the Zoom window, maybe it's not clicking in PowerPoint yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's not working now.
Keep on. Wait.
Here we go.
Try now. Should work now.
I have to touch back again.
Yeah, since you were clicking on the Zoom window, it was trying to click on the Zoom window, but it should. Since I clicked back on PowerPoint, it should the remote.
Okay, thanks. So we are thinking about, right? You want to figure out what is the difference between the two numbers, right? You also have to follow the step here. All right, so the first one you have to write down the number. It's a larger number above the smaller number, and you have to align it on the right here, right? Step number two, you can start with the rightmost column of the digit and work on the way left through the various column. And now you do the subtract, right? You do it step by step, and if it's less than, you have to borrow one from the number next column to the left if it's necessary here. So we can think about again, right? You can think about that is the algorithm. That we have the sum of the specific rule or the sequence of the rule here, and you have to follow in order to figure out what is the difference between the two numbers here. Right? And I think that I have the here for this one.
Press the power button on the TV once to hide it.
Okay.
What
On the power button
On the
at the very bottom right.
press that once. And
this where the power button?
Yeah,
This one?
Yep.
press it once, and then it'll.
Now this one. And then if you want to pull that menu.
For each person in room, set n equal to n plus 1. How to interpret this pseudocode? Well, line 1 declares, so to speak, a variable called n and initializes its value to 0. This just means that at the beginning of our algorithm, the thing with which we're counting has a value of 0. After all, before we start counting, we haven't counted anything yet. Calling this variable n is just a convention. I could have called it most anything. Now, line 2 demarks the start of a loop, a sequence of steps that will repeat some number of times. So in our example, the step we're taking is counting people in the room. Beneath line 2 is line 3, which describes exactly how we'll go about counting. The indentation implies that it's line 3 that will repeat. So what the pseudocode is saying is that after starting at 0, for each person in the room, we'll increase n by 1. Now, is this algorithm correct? Well, let's bang on it a bit. Does it work if there are 2 people in the room? Let's see. In line 1, we initialize n to 0. For each of these 2 people, we then increment n by 1. So on the first trip through the loop, we update n from 0 to 1. On the second trip through that same loop, we update n from 1 to 2. And so by this algorithm's end, n is 2, which indeed matches the number of people in the room. So far, so good. How about a corner case, though? Suppose that there are 0 people in the room, besides me, who's doing the counting. In line 1, we again initialize n to 0. This time, though, line 3 doesn't execute at all, since there isn't a person in the room, and so n remains 0, which indeed matches the number of people in the room. Pretty simple, right? But counting people one at a time is pretty inefficient too, no? Surely we can do better. Why not count 2 people at a time? Instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so forth, why not count 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on? It even sounds faster, and it surely is. Let's express this optimization in pseudocode. Let n equal 0. For each pair of people in room, set n equal to n plus 2. Pretty simple change, right? Rather than count people one at a time, we instead count them 2 at a time. This algorithm does twice as fast as the last. But is it correct? Let's see. Does it work if there are 2 people in the room? In line 1, we initialize n to 0. For that one pair of people, we then increment n by 2. And so by this algorithm's end, n is 2, which indeed matches the number of people in the room. Suppose next that there are 0 people in the room. In line 1, we initialize n to 0. As before, line 3 doesn't execute at all since there aren't any pairs of people in the room. And so n remains 0, which indeed matches the number of people in the room. But what if there are 3 people in the room? How does this algorithm fare? Let's see. In line 1, we initialize n to 0. For a pair of those people, we then increment n by 2. But then what? There isn't another full pair of people in the room, so line 2 no longer applies. And so by this algorithm's end, n is still 2, which isn't correct. Indeed, this algorithm is said to be buggy because it has a mistake. Let's redress with some new pseudocode. Let n equal 0. For each pair of people in room, set n equal to n plus 2. If one person remains unpaired, set n equal to n plus 1. To solve this particular problem, we've introduced in line 4 a condition, otherwise known as a branch, that only executes if there's one person we could not pair with another. And so now, whether there's 1 or 3 or any odd number of people in the room, this algorithm will now count them. Can we do even better? Well, we could count in 3s or 4s or even 5s and 10s, but beyond that, it's going to get a little bit difficult to point. At the end of the day, whether executed by computers or humans, algorithms are just a set of instructions with which to solve problems. These were just 3. What problem would you solve with an algorithm?
Okay, so that's the first thing, algorithm, right? So basically, algorithm is just remember it's a sequence of steps or the rule, and giving out the specific problem here. And it has a feature of algorithm. The first one is always consists of finite number of instructions. It cannot be run forever. Right? It always has some specific rule or sequence of the rule only. It cannot run forever. Right? That's the first thing. The second one is that each individual instruction is well defined. That means action required by the instruction can be performed effectively or be executed by the computing agent here. And describe a process that eventually haunts. So whenever you deliver the requirement, you have to stop. Right? Again, you cannot run it forever. That is that is a feature of algorithm here. It shows a general class of problem, and computer can be designed to run a small set of algorithm for the performing specific specialized task. So basically, you can think about you have a complex program, and you can break it down into multiple algorithms. Right? And now is the second one. You know that you have the two specific element in the computer science. The first one is algorithm. The second one is information processing here. So information processing, information is commonly referred as a data here, right? It carries out the instruction of algorithm, computing agent, and manipulates information. So basically, for the information processing, you have the three elements. You have input, right? You have the processing, and is the output here. Right? So you can think about, if you think about that for daily activity, if you want to make some cookies, right? You need the input here. Input here is maybe flour, milk, or chocolate chip or something, right? And processing is that you have to follow the recipe. You have to mix the milk with the flour and follow the recipe to make the cookie here. And the output, of course, it is cookies here, right? So basically, for information processing, remember, you have the three elements. The first one, you start with input. What do you need here? What you need from the user, or you can take it from the file in the computer here. Now, the second step, you have, once you get the input, you have to transform information into the well-defined rule here. You have to follow the recipe, and you have to clear recipe. You have to follow it. That is a processing here. And the last one, when you've done everything, you just take it out. It is the output here, right? And the algorithm that you describe information processing also be present as the information also. As itself, the algorithm is information here. And in computer science, I discover how to represent many other things. You can see that you can see any type of information, right? It can be image, music, human speech, and video, and so on. Okay, so now we go with the structure of a module of computer system. I think this one is not really relevant to this class here. So I just want to go brief for this one. And I believe that if you want to go in detail about structure of the computer, I think you learn the IT support, right? ITSP class is more in detail here. Anyway, I just want to go into detail on the surface of this one. So the model computer system consists of the hardware and the software. And the hardware is everything about the physical device required to execute algorithm. And you can see that everything here physical, right? It is a hardware. You can see the monitor, keyboard, mouse, everything here. And the software is a set of algorithms that represent as a program in particular programming language. So that is a software. And basically, the hardware component of the computer, you have the memory, you have the CPU, it's a central processing unit, and the set of input and output device. So we can think about input here. You have many type input, right? Keyboard, right? You have the mouse. It's also the keyboard here. And for the output device, you can see the monitor or speaker, right? And that the CPU here is a central processing unit. It's the brain of the computer. Everything is a processing here. And in order to do that, you need to store information, right? You have two type of memories. The first one is the internal memory, and the second one is the external memory. The memory, you can think about internal, it is RAM or ROM. In the external memory, you can think about hard disk drive. You have SD, or nowadays you can store it in the cloud also. Right? Okay, so computer memory is a setup to represent and store information in the electronic form. It store everything is a binary digit. It's a 0 and 1, and you have the random access memory here. RAM is also called the internal or primary memory. The thing is that you have to use RAM to work very fast. So basically, think about if you lose some of the Microsoft Word file, right? And you want to save it, you save it into the hard disk drive. But when we open it, actually it loads it back into the RAM here. The reason is the RAM it works very fast, and it only has specific limit storage away. So the part of computer responsible for processing, it is a CPU here. You can think about it's the brain of the computer. And for the external or secondary memory, it can be the hard disk drive and it, SD or optical, or nowadays you can store it in the Google Drive. And that is how a model of computer memory, you store everything in the binary here, in the byte. And remember, you have one byte you can store for the 8 bits here. And computer software. So for the software, is a program stored in the computer memory, must be represented in the binary or machine code here. You have the loader to take a set of machine language instruction as input and load them into appropriate memory location. And the most important example of the system software is the computer operating system. Right? So you almost cannot do anything without the operating system here. It can be the Windows or Linux or Mac OS here. The operating system is the one who control everything about the hardware and interface with the user here. Sorry, what is it? Okay, and some important part, you can have the file system, user interface, you can have the graphic user interface or touch screen interface. And that you have application software. Application is that you include a web browser, word processing, and spreadsheet, database manager, and many other one here. It is the application. So basically, they break it down the software in the two types. The first one is system software. Everything is controlled by the hardware and interface with the user. And the second one is the application. Now, for the computer software, it break it down into the two types. The first one is the low-level language. Low-level language, the first one is a machine language. Machine language, everything consists of the binary. It's 0 and 1. So basically, for every program, in order to have the computer to execute it, ultimately, they have to translate into the machine language. They have to translate everything into 0 and 1. Right? Because the CPU and computer only understand everything about 0 and 1. So even that you work with the Java or Python, ultimately you have to translate it into machine language here. So in the machine language, it only consists of the sequence of 0 and 1. Right? So you convert everything. That's everything, but you can convert everything in 0 and 1. And you know something about if you press the keyboard and the character H here, actually also convert it into the binary, into the CPU to understand it here. Now the first, the low-level language, you can have the machine language, or you can have the assembly language. So for the assembly language, it tries to make it more understandable by the human. Right? So we can symbolically represent machine language. Think about you have add character A and B here instead of the order of 0 and 1 here. So when we talk about the low-level language here, machine language, when you're done with the machine language, you have to totally understand about the hardware. So we say you have to understand the hardware in order to represent everything in 0 and 1. So for that reason, when you work with the low-level language, it is a physical and hardware specific. That means when you run with the machine language in the one computer, it not really work with the other computer here, because they might have the different hardware here, right? So for this one, you have to totally understand about the hardware, and you have to deep knowledge about the hardware and physical hardware here. The second one, it is a high-level language. It is to make it simple. To make it simple, it contains English word and phrase and expression here. It's easier to learn. So we think about when we work with the Python, you work with the Java, it's very simple for you to understand when you work with the 0 and 1 here. Right? And you have some of the example of high-level language is C++, Java, and Python, and Visual Basic. Okay. And now my question here: what is the pro and con of the low-level and high-level language? What is it? For the low level here, what is the pro and con? Yes.
We can be very efficient with our code.
Yes.
As a pro, but a con that our code is hard to read for
Yeah.
someone else to just look at.
Yeah, right.
Meanwhile, with a high level language, the pro is, well, it's using English words.
Yeah.
Everyone can read that.
Mhm.
A con would be someone misunderstanding what you're trying to write.
What do you think about the con here? For the high level?
I would say it's mostly dependent on the person's personality as well, depending on how they want to tackle certain project, like certain situations. Because everybody's going to have some sort of idea that they want to put down for a solution, but not everybody's going to be able to understand each other's methods.
Okay.
So like, to put it simply, like if you have a simple problem, one person could do it that way, but if nobody annotates or even mentions how they're trying to tackle it, you're just gonna have to go. You will go in blind and trying to figure out the entire code itself, so
Mhm.
being explained to you.
Okay. Anything else? Yes.
A con would be that it's less efficient, but it really depends on what the code is for. If it's a driver, it's gonna be machine language.
Yeah.
Because it has to interface with the kernel. But if you're doing interfacing with the database or doing anything that pretty much exists at the OS level, it's better to do it in high level language.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends on this one. So I think that the pro here is the mode pro of the machine language. It works very fast, right? You can work directly with the physical hardware. You do not have to translate it, right? So basically, when you work with a high level here, you have the process of translating into the binary, right? Because again, every computer ultimately they have to do everything to binary. You have to take time to translate it, and everything, and that's the pro and the con, of course. It's very hard to understand. It's very hard to understand what it. And again, it works with the hardware specifically. So when you work with one computer here, it might not work with the other one because they have a different hardware. But with a high level language, it's easy to understand. It's easy for you to code. But the con is that you have to translate it. You have to do step to translate it here. So slow down process. That is something very, very basic for this one. Okay, for the computer software, what is it? Okay, now we do with something here, right? So basically, for the high level programming language, in order to code a program, right? So normally for the complex one, you can use a text editor here. You can do that. You can do it when you work with the Python. You just open the notepad here, and you do the code, and you set it the py file here, extension here, right? But normally you have for the one here, you have to do work with the ID here, because when you work with the ID, they give you some information about the syntax check before you work with code, right? So even that when you work with the Visual Studio Code, if you write something wrong, even that they have not compiled, it gives you the idea what is wrong with you here, right? What's wrong with you? Okay, so basically for any high-level programming language, ultimately you have to translate it into the machine code, and you have two types: translator, you have the compiler, and or interpreter here. Again.
A program is a set of instructions that tells a computer what to do in order to come up with a solution to a particular problem. Programs are written using a programming language. A programming language is a formal language designed to communicate instructions to a computer. There are two major types of programming languages: low-level languages and high-level languages. Low-level languages are referred to as low because they are very close to how different hardware elements of a computer actually communicate with each other. Low-level languages are machine-oriented and require extensive knowledge of computer hardware and its configuration. There are two categories of low-level languages: machine language and assembly language. Machine language, or machine code, is the only language that is directly understood by the computer, and it does not need to be translated. All instructions use binary notation and are written as a string of ones and zeros. A program instruction in machine language may look something like this. Technically speaking, this is the only language computer hardware understands. However, binary notation is very difficult for humans to understand. This is where assembly languages come in. An assembly language is the first step to improve programming structure and make machine language more readable by humans. An assembly language consists of a set of symbols and letters. A translator is required to translate the assembly language to machine language. This translator program is called the assembler. It can be called the second generation language since it no longer uses ones and zeros to write instructions, but terms like move, add, sub, and end. Many of the earliest computer programs were written in assembly languages. Most programmers today don't use assembly languages very often, but they are still used for applications like operating systems of electronic devices and technical applications, which use very precise timing or optimization of computer resources. While easier than machine code, assembly languages are still pretty difficult to understand. This is why high-level languages have been developed. A high-level language is a programming language that uses English and mathematical symbols, like plus, minus, percent, and many others, in its instructions. When using the term programming languages, most people are actually referring to high-level languages. High-level languages are the languages most often used by programmers to write programs. Examples of high-level languages are C++, Fortran, Java, and Python. To get a flavor of what a high-level language actually looks like, consider an ATM machine where someone wants to make a withdrawal of $100. This amount needs to be compared to the account balance to make sure there are enough funds. The instruction in a high-level computer language would look something like this. X equals 100. If balance less than X, print insufficient balance, else, print please take your money. This is not exactly how real people communicate, but it is much easier to follow than a series of ones and zeros in binary code. There are a number of advantages to high-level languages. The first advantage is that high-level languages are much closer to the logic of a human language. A high-level language uses a set of rules that dictate how words and symbols can be put together to form a program. Learning a high-level language is not unlike learning another human language. You need to learn vocabulary and grammar so you can make sentences. To learn a programming language, you need to learn commands, syntax, and logic, which correspond closely to vocabulary and grammar. The second advantage is that the code of most high-level languages is portable, and the same code can run on different hardware. Both machine code and assembly languages are hardware-specific and not portable. This means that the machine code used to run a program on one specific computer needs to be modified to run on another computer. Portable code in a high-level language can run on multiple computer systems without modification. However, modifications to code in high-level languages may be necessary because of the operating system. For example, programs written for Windows typically don't run on a Mac. A high-level language cannot be understood directly by a computer, and it needs to be translated into machine code. There are two ways to do this, and they are related to how the program is executed. A high-level language can be compiled or interpreted. A compiler is a computer program that translates a program written in a high-level language to the machine language of a computer. The high-level program is referred to as the source code. A typical computer program processes some type of input data to produce output data. The compiler is used to translate source code into machine code or compiled code. This does not yet use any of the input data. When the compiled code is executed, referred to as running the program processes the input data to produce the desired output. When using a compiler, the entire source code needs to be compiled before the program can be executed. The resulting machine code is typically a compiled file, such as a file with an exe extension. Once you have a compiled file, you can run the program over and over again without having to compile it again. If you have multiple inputs that require processing, you run the compiled code as many times as needed. An interpreter is a computer program that simulates a computer that understands a high-level language. This means that the interpreter translates the source code line by line during execution. Consider again a computer program that processes some type of input data to produce output data. The interpreter executes the code line by line, which results in the desired output data. The only result is the output data. There is no compiled code. When using an interpreter, every time you want to run the program, you need to interpret the code again, line by line. There is no compiled code to use if you have multiple inputs that require processing. To understand the difference between compiling and interpreting, let's examine the equivalent in human languages. For example, consider a movie made in Asia where all the characters speak Vietnamese. To market the movie to an international audience, the spoken text needs to be translated into English. A translator would sit down and carefully translate all the text and create subtitles for the movie. Anytime someone wants to watch the movie, they can turn on the subtitles. This type of translation is the equivalent of compiling. Everything is translated once and can be used many times afterwards. Now consider a delegate from Vietnam giving a speech in the United Nations in Vietnamese. In order for the attendees to understand the speech, there are a number of translators who provide a translation that is transmitted to the attendees' headphones. This translation occurs close to real time. Every time the delegate speaks in Vietnamese, the translators get to work. This type of translation is the equivalent of interpreting. Text is translated line by line as necessary, and the results are not used again. Compiled code tends to be faster since the translation is completed in one step prior to the actual execution. Interpreted code, on the other hand, is more flexible and can be run interactively. For example, using interpreted code, you can try out a few lines of code to see if they work very quickly without having to go through the steps of compiling and executing the program. One advantage of using compiled code is that it does not reveal the original source code. This makes it possible to distribute a program without revealing its inner workings. When you install a software application on your computer, you are typically installing a compiled version of the code. You can run the software application, but you can't open up the source code in the original programming language. For many companies selling software applications, the original source code is a well-kept secret and gives them their competitive advantage over other companies. Examples of compiled languages include C and its derivatives, C++, and C#, COBOL, and Fortran. Examples of interpreted languages are Java, Perl, Python, and Ruby. There are two main...
Explained very clearly there. Okay, so in the process, when you translate it into the machine language, you have to check the syntax error. Right? The syntax error is something that when we have the syntax error program will be stopped. It cannot run anymore, and until you have to fix it, until you fix it error here. Okay, so here is the software used in the code process. We have the text editor. So we think about the text editor. You can use a notepad here. Right? Have the notepad here. And it's the thing about you want to print now. You want to print a very simple program here. You have print. You have say hello. Hello world. That's the first thing in every program. Now, in order to run with the Python, you have to save the file. You have to save the file, and you run it as a test here. And remember that you have to save it with the Python file. You have to put the file right here. So, one, yes. So when I run it, Visual Code, and you can open the file, document here, and you can run it here, and you choose the Python here. Yes, it's free now. It'll work there. So basically, when you work with Visual Studio Code at home, when you download and install it here, right? The first step here, you have to download and install the Python. That's the first step. And in the Python here, you see in the Python also, we already have the idle here for the Python. You can work from the idle in the Python, it's okay, or you can work from the shell. Right? Here's the shell here. The shell, it works in the interpreter mode, line by line. Right? So we think about that. I keep the side 10, right here, you print out the 10 here, right? And that's the 3, and print out 13 here, line by line in the interpreter mode. But for the complex program, the better way you work in the way we work with the idle here. Right? So when it's our thing about if you want to print out the number from 1 to 10, you have the 4 range here. 1 to 11 here. Right? You can run it. You can run the module here. The first you have to save it here. Let me test it again. Wow. sorry, that's this one. Put it in a document. Okay, that is the way we work with the Python. So basically in the Python, you can work in the shell or you can work in the idle here. So for the program, most of the program, you have a complex program, should be better you work in the idle here. Right? So in the idle, you see, you also you are able to set for the Talo code here. We have the syntax here, it's a syntax here. And the same when you work with the Visual Studio Code here. So if you want to work with the Visual Studio Code, the first thing you have to download and install the Python. The second one, you have to download and install the Visual Studio Code here. The third one, you have to install the extension of the Python. So basically for Visual Studio Code, you can run on any code. You can run with the Java, you run the Python and C++ here, or this one, the C# here. And if you want to run it for the Python, remember that you have to go to the extension here. You click on the extension and you try on the Python here. Sorry, Python here. And remember that you have to click on this one and you have to install it. So basically, if you have not installed it, they have the option here for you to install. Right? So that is something if you want to work with Visual Studio Code for this class here, you have to download the Python, you have to download Visual Studio Code, and you have to install the extension for the Python here. Okay. So if you work with the idle here, it is more convenient because it gives you some the syntax error, even that before you run the program, even that before you compile here. Now let me give you the example here. If I run with this one, right? So I think about if I run here, I have 4 range, right? And I bring here. Right? So see this one we got the syntax error, but when you work with the text editor, and you have no idea what is going on with this one, right? But when I copy this one here, when I copy this one, I paste it into the this one. Move it here. New file. And select the language here. Add the Python here. And put it here. See, you see this one give you the idea here. What's wrong with this one? Right? This one because you do not have the double column here, and this one also you have to put it inside here, right? So that's the thing. That's a very convenient when you work with the idea here. It gives you some idea. Also, you have the color code here. Also, if you want to change it, it gives you some idea. So this color here, it is a built-in function. You know that for this one, and for the other one, you see this variable here, and some of those you have the syntax word here. So I strongly recommend you that either to do with the idea in the Python here. In the Python here, right? You can work with the Python or you can work with the Visual Studio Code here. This one. Okay. Let me go again with the class here. Okay, so that is a brief history of the computing system. I do not want to go into detail here. It's not really relevant to this class. And if you want to be the IT support or if you want to know more about the hardware, you can search it up here. Okay, so now we go with this one. This class, you work the Python, right? So the first step. You have to click on this link here and you download and install the Python in your computer. And remember that the Python is the interpreter. You can run with the shell. I have one with the Python here. You have Python. You can run with the shell here, and you can put whatever it is. So hello world here. So very straightforward is this one. So that is the interpreter one line by line here, but when you work the program, it should be better you work with the idle here. Okay, that is the one you will run the Python shell here in the window. Now we have something about the variable definition before we work with some specific example here. Why is this name here? What is it? You know what is it? Why do you have the Python?
It must be a glitch. I've seen that happen before. I don't know how to fix it.
How can I?
I've encountered it before, just leave the full screen and then come right back in.
Oh,
So-
It probably thinks that you're still hovering over something else.
yeah.
Okay. That's-
Yeah, there we go, it's gone now.
Okay.
There we go.
So yeah, we have the definition of variables are used in store information to be referenced and manipulated in the computer program. So it's the sole purpose of a variable is to label and store data in the memory here. So think about this one here. In the process, if you have the variable name, it's X here, and assign the value of number 10 here. So basically, what really happened with this one is that in the memory, it reserves one slot here in the memory. And the slot with the name here is X. X here is the variable name and is reference to the one slot in the memory. And after this step here, it puts the number 10 into the slot in the memory here, right? So now after you have X equal 10, now I put in here, X equal to 20. So again, the X here is the reference slot in the memory. And you know that it's a variable, that means it's changeable. You can change it anytime. You can manipulate it anytime. So after this one, the number 20 will override the number 10 in this one. And that is the way you work in the variable. So now think about this one. If I have the variable here, right? The first one, I put the X equal to 10. Now I put X equal to 20. Now I want to figure it out, right? I want to figure it out. I have Y equal to the X plus X. What do you think? What is the value of the Y after the two steps? Yes, the 40, right? Because the thing is that whenever you assign the value, the new value will override the previous value, right? So when you after this step here, whenever you call the X, whenever you call X here, right? See Y equal to what? X here. What's the X? It reference to the memory slot here, 20. It put print out the 20 here, and again it plus X here again. It reference to the same slot, right? The same slot. That's why you have the 20 here. That's why you see after this step you have Y the 40, not 30. So that's the thing you have to remember. The variable is a thing reference to the specific slot in the memory, and you can manipulate it. That means you can change it or do something with this one here. So basically, in the Python, you have the four basic variable types. The first one, integer here. It is a whole number. You think about it's something about you have the -1 or number 100 here. It is a whole number. It's an integer, right? The second one, a float or floating point. You have the decimal point. You can think about here 7. It's very hard to draw here. It's not really set. This one, that is a float here. A boolean is something true or false. It's true or false, and you use a boolean a lot when you work with the selection. If something do something, if not do something, or you can work with the loop. Remember about the loop, you only have the condition to check. If yes, keep doing it. If not, you exit here. The last one is string. String is the type. Everything is the type here. So think about you want to print out the hello one here, right? I don't know, it's very hard to time here. And that's in the Python, when you work with a string here, it always put in the quote mark or double quote mark here. You have to remember something here, right? So basically, now we come back with the program, right? So for program, normally you have a 3 elements for every program. You have input, you have processing, and the output here. Program usually accept the input from the source, process them, and the output result to the destination. That's the 3 elements. In the Python, it is a built-in function input here. So whenever you want to get the input from user, whenever you want to input, it can be the number, it can be a character, it can be string, anything. You have to use a built-in function input here to get the input from user. And one thing you have to remember over here, think about this one here, right? If you want to get the name, if you want to get the name from the user, you have to use the built-in function here. Input here is a built-in function, and after that, everything here is a prompt. Tell the user what they have to do here, right? Now, if you have the name input, enter the name, and he enters the can number here. And if you want to print it out, right, it's print it out, and that's the name here. But one thing you have to remember about the input function here, about the input function, not this one. I mentioned about the input function later. So for every program, you have the 3 elements input. If you want to get input from user, you use the built-in function input here. Now, if you do some processing already, if you want to print it out, you have the build again. It's a built-in function here. It is the print here. It's print and it put in expression here. So we can print the type, or you can print the variable, or any value on this one here. Now, again, remember here, that is very important. The input function is always being a string from the user keystroke and we turn it to the program. So remember, whenever you get from the user with the input function here, it already returns in the string format. It already returns in string format. And let me show you the simulation here. Think about this one. Here, so I have I want to get it from the user, right? I have the input here. Enter the number. So I want to set y equal to x plus 3. I want to print out y. So that program here, input it is x. I just want to get the number from user. And the output is that I want to print out what is x plus 2 here. So see what happened here. See what happened with this one when I run this program. Okay. So I think I put the number 10 here. You have the syntax error here. You have the syntax error. There's a syntax error here because you see, whenever you got input from user, it always is string format. So when you have the string format, so actually what happened here? Let me modify it again with this one. Okay, now I think it should be better than on this one. This one. What we input. Okay.
I think you did a Jupyter notebook instead of a text file.
Yes. Well, what do you mean?
I think when it asked you for what file type, I think you selected Jupyter notebook, and I'm not sure that would have caused an issue. I don't know much about that.
Okay. Okay, so now I have y equals x plus 10 plus 3 here, and we now y. Okay, This one got error, right? Because this one causing the error. This is what's the thing here. When you got it from the user, by the default, it always in string format. Right? So actually, when I enter the number 10 here, actually, when I enter the number 10 for this one, when I enter number 10, actually it is in string format. You see that the program here understand it is string format of the 10 here, not the number. Not the number here, not the number here. So when you plus the string format here is the number 3, you cannot do it, right? That's why you have the syntax error here. So basically, in order to processing with the number in the Python, after you got the input from user, you have to convert it. You have to convert it into the number format. And in order to convert it into the number format, you have two ways to do that. You have in order to convert it into the number format, you have the two functions. Again, you have the two variable function here. The first one the first one you have to use the int function here. Again, it is a variable function. Right? The int function here, you can convert string into the integer number. And the second one, you have the float function here. It convert into the floating number here. Right? So basically for this, but again for this program here, if you want to modify it, right, you have to, the first one you have to convert it here. Right? You have to, or you can use it here. You can put it here, input here, integer here. Right? So what happened for this one? What happened with this one here? If I enter the number 10 here, right? I got string number 10, but I use the int function here, variable function. It will convert the string number 10 into the number 10. And after that here, this one works right now, right? And run it again for this one. And I run this one, I have the 13 now, right? Because the thing is that I will convert it into the integer number here. And if you want to get it into the float number, you can use a float function here. You can use it, you can replace it here.
Okay, I think I get it. Before we couldn't process it because it thought 10 was a word.
Yes, right. The 10.
And now we converted it into a number that I can now work with.
Okay. Always think about this one here, right? I put it here. Oh, sorry. Copy. Yeah, you see. See, if I do not convert it, it put in the code market. It is string. It is string format here. That's the reason you cannot add it to number 3. But now, if I modify it here, I put it integer here, function here. Put it again. I put the number 10 here, and now print out. Now see what's the difference here. This is a number format, and this one is string format here because it put everything inside the code mark. Remember that if you put everything inside the code mark or double code mark, it is string format, and that's for reason you cannot add with the number. Okay, so basically you have the two variable functions to convert from the string to the number. The first one is the int here, the whole number, or you can convert it into the float here. I put the 7.5.7. I put print out here. So that is something you have to remember. Some of the most common mistake when you work with the input here. Remember, if you want to do processing with the number, you have to convert it from string to the number by the two function here, the int function or float function here. Okay, and if you want to print now, use the built-in function. It's a print here. So print that is print the string here. Okay, always string, and you have to convert it the two function here, int and float here. And you can concatenate between the string and the number here, right? And for this one, you see, you got the input, right? You use the int function here. You convert it number 23 here. The second one, you have 44. Now you want to print it out. What is the sum, right? This one is a text, right? And it's that is the value here. You add plus the first and the second, and you print out the sum of the 67. It's very, very straightforward, right? Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so here I just summarize some of the function here. You have a float function. All of them the real function. You don't have to define it. You just use it. You know what is the syntax to use there. Float, you convert string into the floating number. Int, convert string into the integer number. Input, you got something from the end user. You will print out, and you can concatenate the string together. Right? You have string number 1 and string number 2. Use the concatenate it together here. Now you have the editing, saving, and running script as the first step. Download the Python, right? And working with the Python interactive mode. That's the shell here. Right? Use a try to try to practice with the shell here, interactive mode. All right. The second one, coding with the IDEO editor. So if you want to work with the IDEO editor here, you can go to the file and have a new file here. That is environment. And if you want to show the line, sometimes when you run program, if you have the syntax, it tell you what line you have the arrow syntax here, syntax arrow, right? So you can option here. You have the show line number here. So we have number 1, like number 10, y equal to x plus 2. Sorry. So we see you have the line here. So when you compile it, if you have error, it shows you what line you have the error here. It's very, very straightforward. And if you work with the Visual Studio Code, it's very, very straightforward here. You see, they only have the line here, and you do not have to do anything. Anyway, it's up to you. You can choose whatever. You can choose whatever IDEO, right? It can be integrated in the Python, or can be PyCharm, or can be a Visual Studio Code, or any. You have many other IDEO editing here. So I also have information that you have to download the Visual Studio Code here, and you have the extension. Install extension for Python in Visual Studio Code, and if you want more info, you can watch video here. Okay. Here's the shell. Yeah, how it works here. Right? How it works with behind the scene here. You have the Python code. When you run it here, when you compile here, you have syntax check as a translator. Right? So after this step, if you have any error, syntax error, you have to fix it before it go to the Python program here. And when you have the py file, right? Whenever you run it, you got input from user and do processing and giving out the output here. Okay, so we have some of the information about definition about syntax error. I believe you know that, right? Syntax error is something that whenever you got the syntax error, program will stop, and until you have to fix it, right? You have to take the action to fix it to have it run again. Otherwise, it won't stop here. And other type of the error, if we have the logic error, so the logic error program runs smoothly, but the output is not what it expected, right? You can think about this one here. If you can think about the logic error here, right? So we have the program, right? We have the program. If you want to if you want to figure out what is the sum of the two numbers, right? You have the number x here and number y here. Now you want to figure out what is the sum of two numbers. You have to do x plus y, right? X plus y here. Now instead of x plus y, you put x minus y. So for this program, when you run it, when you compile, run smoothly. But the output here is not what you expected. So that is a logic error. So basically for logic error, it runs smoothly, but the output is not what you expected here. That's why testing is very, very important in every program. Okay, so I think that's all for this chapter, the module 1. And if you have any questions, let me know. Any questions so far? Okay, so here's the thing that I want you to, when you come home, something you have to do. First thing, you have to download and install the Python. That's one thing. And if you want to work with the IDEO with Python, you can work. Or if you want to work with the Visual Studio Code, download it. And remember that when you work with the Visual Studio Code, you have to install the extension. Yes.
You do consider Visual Studio Code to be easier to use, right?
Yes.
All right.
For me.
For you.
But it's up to you. You can use a PyCharm or whatever.
You can also install, if you have something that we don't have on these computers, you can install it.
Yes.
If you want to use PyCharm or Spider or something else, just install it on these computers.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You
I'll
can.
probably use Visual Studio.
We'll have it on there by next class.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Every computer on this class already has the Visual Studio Code here.
Okay.
But anyway, it's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah, I know. Okay, so on Thursday we go again. We go with module 2. Chapter 2, and we do some of the assignment here. Let me see what you have there. Okay, so let me talk about a little bit about the assignment here, right? So basically, you have some for each module, you have some type of assignment here. You have discussion, right? This one, and you have the programming exercise. So in the programming exercise, actually, it route to the center. You when you click on this one, it links to the center, and you do on the virtual machine here, I believe. Yes. Doing the and click on start assignment now, and it do the in virtual machine, right? You have the instruction on the left here, right? What is it? The left here, and program output the sentence content username and edge. So basically, what do you think for this program? What are the input here?
X equals input.
Yeah, no. What are the input? Answer. I'm not asked about the syntax. So basically, for every program, you have the 3 elements here: input, processing, and output. Right. So basically, in order for this program, what do you think? What are the input here for this one? If you look on the instruction here,
Our
input is the name and edge, and the output is print out. So name and edge, okay. So it's very simple. You can use by 2 input, right? And you use the print function here, print out the output here. So it's very, very straightforward for this one. And remember one thing here. Remember for every virtual machine in the center here, if you want to submit it, remember you have to click on this one here. You have to click on, I think this one, start here, and after you done your work, right? You are able to run check. So run check, I have not done anything. That's why I have 0 here. So after you see, if you have 100% and you are okay with that, you click submit here. So remember when you work with this one.
question about the mind tap. If we click submit, like let's say it's at 99%. would I go through and complete the assignment or?
Yes, you go through, even that you have 0% or
Okay.
50%, it go through. And the grade will be synced into the campus.
Okay, so I'll take that percentage and put it in campus.
Yes. You don't have to do anything, yeah, it's an automatic sync into the campus. And also you have the quiz also, I think this one also linked to the mic. No, not this. This one not linked. And this one program website. Yes, that's one. Okay, so I think that's all for today. And see you guys. Sorry, I have to check the attendance here. I believe that all of you. Hunter, are you here? Hello? Hunter, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Riley, are you here? Daniel? No? Noah, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Cole here. John here, right?
Yep.
Okay. Adam?
Right here.
Yeah, okay. Zachary?
Here.
So I had two of you. What's your name?
Scott Stefaniak. I had my paperwork go through late. I got talked to Bates and Gibbs yesterday.
Okay, so what's your name again? Let me put it here. How can we pronounce your name?
Stefaniak, STEFANIAK.
SDEV.
And my first name's Scott.
And what's your name?
Wes. Nah, I'm not on there.
Okay, so what can you pronounce your name?
Yeah, SNYDER, Snyder,
S
SNYDER.
N Y T.
SYN.
Instead of a T, it's a D. Delta. Not Tango, Delta.
Okay, can you send me the email the name here and put it here on this one? Okay. I put it here. Okay, so see you guys on Thursday.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, it's Thursday.
All right, cool.
Tuesday, Thursdays.
Immediately we
Yeah,
got.
I need a favor from you.
Are you available for like 30 or 40 more minutes?
This touch
If
screen.
not,
is
it's
off.
okay.
Yes.
But I have to do a virtual meeting for speech at 11. Dury here has two classes that he needs to read the rules to and reset passwords.
My bad about today. I don't know if you saw the picture. Some person decided to just park in the middle of the parking lot.
No, I didn't. See it. It was neat.
I don't understand it.
Doesn't
Hey,
mean.
what's your reset my password to?
You can do it right now if you want to do that. It's password 01 exclamation point with a capital P.
Just park. Nobody's in their car. Nobody's in this car.
They're
Just like-
late and they decided to. What rooms do we have to do? We have to do SDEV 120
I gotta do that.
and what's in 2378.
Oh my God, I already pulled it out. It
I know
was
SDEV
like-
120 is in
I
21.
thought it was a Netty two. Oh, informatics, never mind. Informatics at 11.
Would you be, we would both consider it, if you can, a great favor, if you could read the rules and reset passwords for students in one of the two classes at 11, because I can't.
You want me to do that?
At 11.
You're,
Wait.
because you have two to do at 11, right?
Oh, I do. That's the